History is often changed by a single unusual choice, but sometimes by several. These are the kinds of facts textbooks skip: the hidden routes, the odd protests, and the decisions that changed everything. 3 brothers escaped East Germany in 3 different ways. One of them crossed with an air mattress, not a car or a passport. The Bethke brothers lived under a border system that made leaving heavily restricted. In that world, a normal object could become a way out. Each brother improvised differently. One used a zipline, another an ultralight aircraft, and one relied on that air mattress. Those 3 methods turned the same border into 3 separate problems to solve. Rope, fabric, and a tiny aircraft all had to do the work. Ingo, Holger, and Egbert Bethke each reached freedom alone, but the family name stayed tied to 3 objects: mattress, cable, and aircraft. A royal manuscript turned up in a castle attic, not a museum. It was buried under rubble and piles of paper. The book was the Breviary of Marie of Savoy, made in the 1430s for Marie of Savoy, Duchess of Milan. It was a richly decorated prayer book from an Italian workshop. After Marie of Savoy died, the manuscript disappeared for centuries. In the 1820s, someone found it in the attic of the castle of the Dukes of Savoy. The rediscovery matters because the volume survived the clutter around it. It later entered the municipal library of Savoy in France. A royal book outlasted the room that forgot it. Now it sits safe in Savoy, while the attic remains just beams, dust, and paper. Flamenco dancers signed a protest after a nightclub shut down in North Beach. The paper was for the old Spaghetti Factory Cafe. The building began in 1908 as an industrial structure. Later, after fire damage, it was rebuilt for food, music, and late-night crowds. In 1956, Frederick Walter Koo turned it into a nightclub, coffee house, and restaurant. The old factory became a place for dancers, tables, and music. Then fire code violations forced the closure. As the doors went dark, dancers collected signatures outside the building. The protest turned a performance room into a public cause. For a moment, the old factory was not just a venue, but a stack of signatures. A ruined country house was rescued with a wife's dowry. On Galway Bay, Ardfry House stood half-lost to weather and time. Ardfry stands near Oranmore in County Galway, built in the 18th century on an older moated castle site. By the 1820s, its walls were in dilapidation. The 3rd Baron Walscourt paid for the restoration with his wife's dowry. That money did more than patch stone, it reshaped the house. The repairs added Gothic revival features, including pinnacles and catterfoils. Those pointed details changed the roofline and windows at once. Ardfry kept its place above the bay, with the old estate, outbuildings, and walled orchard around it. A marriage settlement became stone, ornament, and a house on the peninsula. A high school student in Transcarpathia stepped into an underground movement before graduation. That student was Vasil Kainas. During and after World War II, youth groups in the region were being pulled into resistance and organization. Kainas was active in that youth movement while still in school. He joined a partisan detachment, then shifted into youth organizing. The same young man later edited a newspaper in the first post-war years. That work gave him a public role after the war. It also placed him at the center of Transcarpathia's political and cultural transition. Later, Kainas wrote about the anti-fascist struggle in Transcarpathia and its unification with Soviet Ukraine. The student became a historian, with a newspaper on one desk and archives on the next. A future Indonesian general may have started with a lottery draw, not a plan. According to his mother, one random choice pointed him toward the army. The man was Hotmangaraja Pontus Panjaitan. He later became an Indonesian army officer, and his family remembered that draw as the turning point. From there, he entered the Indonesian army and built a long service record. His career later moved beyond barracks into diplomacy, including Berlin and France. In 1997, he served as military attaché in Berlin. Years later, from 2014 to 2019, he was ambassador to France, then ambassador to Singapore in 2025. A small family decision could steer a life from a paper slip to an army career, then to embassy halls. The story ends with a mother, a draw, and a uniform on a chair. A former Salvadoran president ran again in 1864 and got fewer than 20 votes. That number is shockingly small for a man who had once held the office. Rafael Juan Campo y Pomar had already served as president of El Salvador from 1856 to 1858. By 1864, he returned to the contest after years in politics, business, and journalism. The key detail is simple: he was still allowed to run, but almost no one backed him. Fewer than 20 votes turned a former president into a near-empty tally sheet. That result pointed to a political scene with fragile loyalty and fast-changing alliances. In El Salvador, office could disappear quickly, even for a man who had already reached the top. Campo did not vanish from public life. In 1871, he later served as president of the Constituent Assembly, with the chamber desk and its papers still waiting. In 1885, a revolution in El Salvador toppled one liberal government and brought in another. The label stayed the same, but the rulers changed hands. Francisco Menendez was tied to that revolution. The country was already under a liberal political order, so the fight was not between rival labels. The crucial move was simple: the existing liberal government was removed, and another liberal government took its place. Power shifted inside the same camp. So the revolution changed who spoke for the state, not the broad ideology attached to it. In El Salvador, the office changed before the label did. That is why Menendez's 1885 revolution feels unusual. It ends with new rulers, the same liberal name, and a quiet room of chairs and papers. If one of these stories surprised you, the full compilation has 7 more with the same kind of twist. Subscribe and tell us which historical turn you want explored next.